On Yom Kippur, I gave a sermon called How Far We'll Go. In it, I discussed the essential place of creativity and imagination within Judaism. It's indeed a way to personalize practice and make the entire tradition more meaningful for ourselves. Last night, we as a community partook in a new program, innovated this year. We called it Shabbat Across a Dot. Approximately 100 people within the Adat Shalom community attended Shabbat dinners hosted by other members last night. Across West LA, we had dinner tables available to honor and celebrate Shabbat. 100 people is a big number for any community. It was a great turnout. Special yasher koach to everybody who was involved organizing, especially Marlon Nolan and all of the hosts. And Marlon Nolan. And at the dinner table, I wrote up a question to help spark conversation if it was needed, based on my Yom Kippur talk. The prompt read as follows: how do each of us personalize the Jewish tradition to make it feel like our own? How do we hope to be creative in the coming year with our observance? Well, there is obviously no single correct answer, because we each personalize Judaism in our own way. The truth is that our foundational understanding of Shabbat is a result of rabbinic imagination. And it's in the tradition of the rabbis that we all observe Shabbat the way that we do. The Torah recounts the giving of the Ten Commandments once in Exodus and once in Deuteronomy. In those separate versions, different words are used for the commandment regarding Shabbat. In Exodus, the Ten Commandments say, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho. Remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. In Deuteronomy, the Ten Commandments say, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho. Observe the Sabbath day to make it holy. And the rabbis take these two biblical ideas, remember and observe, and combine them, which is why the famous prayer on Friday night, Lecha Dodi, begins with the line, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Observe and remember, spoken in one statement. Now, this is creatively true for the liturgist who wrote this. It might be how we imagine it as we practice the mitzvot of Shabbat, without prioritizing one over the other. But those two ideas were clearly spoken in different statements in the Torah if you read the Torah word for word, face value. Maimonides, or Rambam, in his Mishnah Torah, his codification of Jewish law from the 12th century, in his legal code, he writes a section of 30 chapters of laws about Shabbat. Chapter 29 I'll just jump towards the end. Chapter 29 begins as follows. Mitzvot aseh min haTorah lekadesh et yom haShabbat bidvarim shene'emar zachor et yom haShabbat lekodsho kilomar zachrohu zichirat Shabbat v'kiddush. It is a positive commandment from the Torah to sanctify the Sabbath day with words. As it says in the book of Exodus, remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. Meaning to say, this remembering is the memory of Shabbat, and that is Kiddush. How do we know that Kiddush is the way we remember Shabbat? How do we know that that's what the Torah meant? Because the rabbis tell us. How do we know that they're right? Because the rabbis tell us. The Kiddush itself is an innovation. It's a way of moving past the text of the Torah and assigning a practice of personal meaning to Friday night, to our Shabbat experience. As we've discussed together in my class over the summer and then again with Rav Pinchas Geller, the Zohar then takes the Kiddush and assigns it even greater meaning. Just as God holds Israel as a rose among the thorns, according to the Zohar, so too do we hold the Kiddush cup in our palm amongst our fingers. All of these innovations, these folds in our unfolding tradition, all of it takes imagination. The rabbis called Shabbat a mountain hanging from a thread, meaning that we have developed a mountain of rich and meaningful Shabbat practice and observances from the thin descriptions of Shabbat in the Torah. Shabbat as a day is divinely ordained, and Shabbat as its practice was imagined and understood through divine influence. Rambam writes at the end of chapter 30, at the end of his 30 chapters about Shabbat, V'hashabbat hi ha'ot shebein hakadosh baruch hu uveinenu le'olam. Shabbat is the eternal sign between the Holy One, blessed be He, and all of us. Rambam, Maimonides imagines Shabbat as our eternal sign from the time of Moses through the time of our newest member, baby Peri Yael, that we just named on this bima. And I ask you to imagine, after last night, a more divine setting for friends and family to come together, for community to meet, for Jews to share time with one another. Imagine a more eternal sign than around a raised glass of wine or grape juice, in our case, by the holiest of candlelight. As I stood last night with my fingers around the Kiddush cup and Simon's hand over my fingers on the Kiddush cup, we remembered Shabbat as God remembers the Jewish people. And I, in turn, was surrounded by Blair and the kids as they remember me and I remember them. And we were surrounded by friends from this community. And we all chanted together, Ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. Because God, you chose us and sanctified us for these special moments from amongst the rest of the nations. And we were, in fact, chosen for this purpose, to remember, to sanctify, to celebrate, to innovate, to imagine, to bring about new traditions that express the divine and transmit ancient ones across the generations. To love God by remembering to stop our lives and stand arm in arm and recite blessings. To love community and to love our families and recognize the living blessings that stand all around us in those moments. All of our creativity add to the meaning of our Judaism. Our Judaism that we know and love today was in fact innovated by rabbis long ago with Shabbat across a dot last night in mind. I want to thank everybody for participating in last night's program. And for those of us who did not RSVP or who RSVP'd very late and we weren't able to accommodate, please participate in the spring. When we get it right, we certainly get it right. Kiddush, Shabbat dinner, family, friends is just right. This community is just right. And it's really gratifying to stop, lishbot, on Shabbat and take note of it together. Shabbat shalom.